Well, that was actually one of the first stories that I did there. I had a real interest in China's critical minerals because they had started introducing export restrictions last year. We went to the south, to Yunnan province. It's a major area and province for processing and for mining critical minerals. What's interesting about Yunnan, though, is there are just hundreds and hundreds of mines, but they're actually quite small. They're on quite a small scale. When you put up a drone and take a look at them, which is the only way to get access because no one will let you through the front door, you see that they actually look quite basic. It doesn't appear like a major sort of industrial park, the kind that you would see in Australia or the United States, for example. But really, the money shot in China is to get to Inner Mongolia. Now, Inner Mongolia is very difficult to report from. If you get off the plane there, you'll be pretty much marched straight back on. But that is where China has its largest rare earth mine at Bayan Obo. And not only is it the largest in China, it is the largest in the world, and the scale is incredible. You can see it from sort of geo-mapping. It is around 90 square kilometres. And when you compare that with Australia, where the largest one in Australia is about 10 square kilometres, it gives you a sense of the scale, because we know that not only has China stitched up critical mining and minerals all over the world, they also have huge resources inside the country.
So how significant then is China in the global supply of these rare earths? Vary from what you say.
It is extraordinary. We've been hearing about that on the ABC all day. I think the two big figures here to take away is that China controls 70% of all of the world's production and 90% of its processing. And it has been doing this for decades. It has been a major part of their industrial, their economic, their security strategy. They are so far ahead that I don't see how any other country can even catch up or try to compete with China. So it is quite amazing what they've managed to do. Even in the last 12 months, they've bought more than $20 billion worth of mines overseas, and it's everywhere. As we know, China has mines in Africa, in Central Asia, in Kazakhstan, in Peru, in Argentina. They control a lot of the mining, the nickel mining in Indonesia, which is the world's largest producer of nickel. So they have been onto this for a while, and it does seem as though in the last 12 months or so, it's taken the rest of the world a long time to sort of wake up and realise that they are way behind.
And China announced export controls on rare earths last week, but it's not the first time it's done that, is it?
That's right. In fact, they had even started using this playbook of using it as leverage as far back as 2010. They were having a dispute with Japan, so they restricted access of rare earth minerals to Japan. But last year it really kicked off, especially when we were in China. There were initially three: germanium, gallium, antimony. I'd never heard of them before then. Since then, they've introduced restrictions on another 5. I think last week it was another 7, as well as restrictions on a permanent magnet. Now, what's a permanent magnet? It is used in all sorts of products, everything from your iPods and your iPod case. So this has really alarmed the United States. I was speaking to a US advisor this morning, a critical minerals expert. She said it had come as a shock to her and a shock to the US. And we got a sense of that at the end of last week when suddenly the US President Donald Trump, in response to that, announced once again 100% trade tariffs on China. And this is the other part of all of this. Right now, critical minerals are stuck in the middle of the global trade war and this sort of superpower battle between the US and China, and now Australia is stepping in there as well.
So what impact are the China's restrictions having globally?
Well, in April, when it again introduced restrictions, it took a couple of months for it to kick in. But speaking to experts, after a couple of months, once that sort of supply chain started to peter out, it was impacting car manufacturers in Europe and the United States, to the extent that Ford, for a time in Detroit, stopped manufacturing its Ford Explorer. So President Trump actually mentioned that some months ago when that actually happened. So yeah, it's definitely having an impact. I mean, there is global concern, especially because China is using this as a leveraging tool. It's a major part of the trade battle now. They can turn it on, they can turn it off, not only the minerals, but also the technology that is used in the processing. And they have even restricted their Chinese nationals from going to work for foreign companies that are involved in critical minerals because they want to keep all of that knowledge that they have gained over decades in-house.